It was September 12, 1998. The fishing village slept under a moonless sky as winds clawed at rooftops with rising fury. At the harbor warehouse, 20-year-old Junho hauled crates onto higher shelves, ignoring the radio warnings. His father, Captain Han, slammed the door open. "Junho, the breakwater's collapsing. We need to evacuate." But Junho shook his head. "We can't leave the equipment. If we lose this haul, we lose the season." His father grabbed his shoulders. "We can replace equipment." "We can't replace you?" Then came the siren, long, low, desperate. The wave hit moments later. A wall of black water burst through the windows. Junho was thrown against steel beams, the ocean roaring in his ears. Through churning water, he saw his father push him upward, toward a collapsing ceiling, toward air. "Appa!" Junho screamed underwater, reaching for his father's outstretched hand. Their fingers brushed, and the current tore his father away. When Junho clawed his way onto the warehouse roof, soaked and shaking, he saw flames rising from shattered power lines. He heard screaming from houses floating away. He saw the harbor, his home, dissolve into the sea. By dawn, his father and younger brother were missing. His mother, swept against a seawall, died before medics arrived. Junho stood barefoot among wreckage, realizing he was the last Han left. The relief trucks came. The reporters came. But the donations ended within weeks, and the rebuild funds evaporated. The elders pulled Junho aside. "Your father owed debts for the new boat. The lenders expect repayment. We can't cover for him. 20 years old. No job. No family. Only debt and debris." He sold their destroyed house plot. Then his father's tools. He worked hauling nets for fishermen who whispered behind his back, "That's the Han boy, the survivor." But survivor sounded like accusation. At night, he slept in a borrowed shack, listening to the sea, like it was waiting for him. In 2000, Junho left for Busan, taking a job at the port as a crane operator apprentice. He worked from 5 a.m. to midnight, saving every one. One evening, exhausted, he fainted near the docks. A paramedic rushed to him, a young woman with bright, sharp eyes. Yura, emergency medical technician. She spoke gently as she checked his vitals. "When's the last time you slept more than 4 hours?" He didn't answer. She sighed. "Some storms aren't weather. Some are the lives we carry." He flinched. She didn't know anything about him. But something in her tone said she understood more than she let on. They met again 2 weeks later, then again, and slowly, a fragile bond formed between two people trying not to drown. But Junho hid everything: his past, the storm, the guilt of surviving. Because loving someone felt like a luxury he had no right to. In 2003, a massive crane accident at the port injured 6 workers. Junho reacted instinctively, climbing broken scaffolding, freeing pinned men, treating wounds with skills he'd learned from watching Yura. He was hailed as a hero, but Junho sat alone that night, hands trembling. He had watched the sea take his family and had been powerless. Saving strangers felt like a lie. Yura found him. "Why can't you let yourself be someone good?" she asked softly. "Because I wasn't good enough when it mattered." It was the first time he spoke the truth aloud. That night, she held him as he cried for the first time since the storm. Yura urged him to consider emergency response training. "You're already doing the job. Why not become someone who runs into storms on purpose?" "I don't deserve that kind of life," he whispered. "Then earn it," she said. "Not for them, for you." He applied. He failed the physical test twice. He studied, trained, tried again. In 2005, he passed. He became a rookie in the National Disaster Rescue Unit, the same teams that once searched for his family. In 2009, a chemical plant explosion ripped through Ulsan. Buildings collapsed. Flames devoured the factory yard. Gas tanks hissed, ready to ignite. Junho's team was sent into the collapse zone. Inside the ruin, he found a child trapped beneath steel beams. A boy barely 8. The situation was hopeless. The ground trembled with approaching secondary explosions. His commander shouted, "Evacuate, leave him, that's an order." Junho didn't move. "I won't walk away again," he said quietly. He tore at the debris with bare hands, metal slicing his skin, heat searing his face. Seconds before the final blast, he freed the boy and shielded him with his own body as fire surged around them. They survived. For the second time in his life, Junho crawled out of disaster. But this time, carrying someone he saved, not someone he lost. Recovery was slow. Skin grafts. Rehab. Months of pain. Yura visited every day, And one evening, she said something he didn't expect. "Marry me." He stared at her, stunned. "I'm broken," he whispered. "So am I. That's why we fit." They married in 2010, in a small rooftop ceremony overlooking the sea. A sea Junho no longer feared. In 2017, meteorologists predicted the worst typhoon in Korea's history. Typhoon Halcyon. Winds strong enough to uproot highways. A storm surge threatening thousands along the southern coast. The disaster unit mobilized every team. The eye was projected to hit Haenam, Junho's hometown. He hadn't returned in 19 years. When his team arrived, the village was evacuating. Junho recognized old faces now wrinkled, gray, stunned to see him. "Han Junho, is that really you?" But there was no time for reunions. As the storm struck, a landslide swallowed half the village. An apartment complex collapsed with dozens trapped inside. Junho led the entry team, navigating flooding hallways, while wind screamed like an angry god outside. Then he found her, a woman trapped beneath a fallen beam, clutching an infant. "Please," she whispered, "save my son." The words pierced him like lightning. Not again. Not another parent he would fail. He lifted the beam with strength born from 19 years of guilt and grit. His bones screamed. His lungs burned. But he freed them. One by one, he pulled survivors from the wreckage, till his arms could no longer lift, till his voice was raw. When the storm passed, every resident of the building had survived. Reporters swarmed him. "What guides you in disaster zones?" they asked. Junho looked at the ruins of the village he once fled, at the people he saved, at the sea, quiet now as if watching him. "I walk into storms," he said, "because someone once walked into one for me." In 2022, a new coastal disaster center was built in Haenam, the Han Maritime Safety Institute. It was funded by the village, the government, and donations from families Junho had saved over the years. They insisted it be named after him. Junho tried to refuse, but the village elders said gently, "You returned our sons and daughters to us. Let us return your name to the shore." At the opening ceremony, Yura stood by his side, holding his hand. He was no longer the boy who lost everything in the storm. He was the man who learned to walk through them. A young trainee approached him afterward. "Team leader Han, I joined because of you. I want to save people the way you do." Junho smiled a small, quiet smile that carried 24 years of storms. "Then remember this," he said. "Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's walking forward even when the water is rising." Late that night, Junho stood on the rebuilt pier of Haenam. The tide whispered at his feet. Yura joined him. "Thinking about the past?" she asked. "No," he said. "I'm thinking about tomorrow." She leaned into him. "You finally made peace with the ocean." He shook his head. "No, I didn't make peace. I learned to listen." They watched the horizon together, where storms would always come, and where he would always go to meet them. Because some storms destroy, but some storms create the person you were meant to become.